glossary contains additional terms that are used on Jason Cohn's Go Free live streams. Show dates and times are available at nowhiteguilt.org. Abstractionist. A saboteur who advocates for ideas rather than the people who create and sustain the ideas, as exemplified by those who advocate Western culture, Western philosophy, law and order, economy, civility, morals, etc., without advocating for Westernkind. Antagonist. A saboteur who plays the villain, assuming the forms, language, and appearance of the bad guy in the anti-white narrative. Anti-white, relating to or characterized by anti-whiteism. A descriptor for thoughts, actions, laws, policies, rules, individuals and organizations hostile to Westernkind. Also a term for anti-white individuals, an anti-white, anti-whites, anti-white lens, a perspective promoted by anti-whites that leads to anti-white conclusions. E.g., selectively ignoring or minimizing the suffering of Westmen while emphasizing the suffering of non-whites, or holding Westmen to higher standards of morality and agency while providing endless excuses for the behaviors of non-whites. Anti-white narrative. The dominant narrative in the West, wherein Westmen are the antagonists and anti-whites are the protagonists. A product of anti-whiteism, the anti-white narrative is imposed on Western civilization by anti-whites who dominate the nerve centers of the regime. Anti-white oligarchs, an extraordinarily wealthy and/or powerful anti-white. Do not refer to such people as elites, because by doing so you subordinate yourself to them in various categories, intelligence, refinement, etc. Anti-white precept. The first of the two components of an MP. The anti-white precept of an MP is the actual anti-white belief, that is on some level of consciousness accepted as true by the mind. E.g., Westmen didn't create Western civilization, they stole it. The second component of the MP, the interpretive mandate, dictates an emotional response to the precept. Anti-white screed. An MC tool formula to understand and predict anti-white thoughts and behavior. Ceteris paribus, or excluding unusual circumstances. Smiley face. Everything conducive to white well-being is negative. Conversely, everything antithetic to white well-being is positive. Anti-white slur. Derogatory labels that directly or indirectly inflict harm on white well-being or those serving it. For example, the word racist is an anti-white slur. Anti-white slurs are individual pieces of the language of white oppression, white erasure, which is reinforced and legitimized by its use. Anti-white tribunal. Any anti-white or group of anti-whites that sit in judgment, meting punishment for heresy to anti-whiteism. Anti-whiteism, thoughts, actions and policies hostile to Westernkind. Archetype Alignment Protocol, AAP, a practice that aligns Westmen with the archetype of Westernkind, which, among other objectives, unleashes the indomitable Western spirit within them. This process is called going free. Aligning with the archetype is the goal of going free. Biospirit, crudely defined as instinct, biospirit is the natural, historic, and expected thought and behavioral patterns distinct to a people. Biospiritual expression, the broadly recognizable expressions of each race of man, which projected onto their environments or their cultures. Biospiritual expression, as it intersects with environment, is synonymous with the word culture. Biospiritual incompatibility, the irreconcilability of biospiritual expressions among the peoples of man. Biospiritual incompatibility precludes multiracial societies, as biospiritual discomfort is the basis of violent balkanization. Chimeras, people and depictions of people in art, children's toys, etc. that are race and sexless. Confront, challenge, and dispel CCD, an AAP technique by which well-being advocates, cued and triggered by internal and external MPs, consciously create counter-triggers in the subconscious mind by vocally or internally counter-asserting with MCs. Counter-asserting, a step in the CCD technique wherein MCs are recited or created as countervailing statements uttered vocally or internally that aggressively counter an MP. Counter-trigger, a consciously created subconscious mechanism for the negation of MPs in white noir. Counter triggers are triggered by the triggered MPs with which a person is infected. Craven, a saboteur who encourages white flight or draws well-being advocates away from white positive communities by various means. Culture, the bio-spiritual expression of a race of people projected onto their environment and reflected back from that environment. Curative contagion, an ancillary term for the AAP going free, referencing an aspect of the AAP's design that enables it to spread easily from person to person. Doom dissector, a content producer who endlessly discusses and analyzes the harm that anti-whites are inflicting on Westmen and Western civilization. Doom documenter, a content producer who reports on all the harm that anti-whites are inflicting on Westmen and Western civilization. Face anti-whiteism, an AAP technique by which well-being advocates exercise, develop, deepen, and explore the knowledge and skill sets they have acquired for going free. The technique involves challenging anti-whiteism and sharing personal success stories in internet forums, community newspapers, etc. Fantasist, a doom documenter and/or doom dissector who frightens his or her audience for the purpose of ensnaring that audience with a false solution. Forced multiracial harmonizing, efforts designed to ameliorate the progressive tension, hostility between racial, ethnic groups in racially, ethnically diverse populations. Such efforts take various forms and consume massive resources in time, money, energy, and intelligence. Going free, the application and practice of AAP. Aligning with the archetype of Westernkind is the goal of Going Free. Going Free Club GFC, an independent club whose participants gather for the purpose of going free as well as helping others to go free. Going Free Friend GFF, a fellow Going Free practitioner with whom a Going Free practitioner exercises, discussing the lexicon and dialectics of Go Free and practicing the exercises for mutual benefit. Great White Awakening. The Great White Awakening, Great White Rising, Union Europa and White Renaissance is the synergistic and exponential momentum manifested by Westmen going free in escalating numbers, marked by milestones that signify the increasing impossibility of arresting momentum. Hate hoax, any covert act, committed by one or more anti-whites in the guise of a white person or people, that conforms to the anti-white narrative and thereby demonizes Westmen is a hate hoax. Hate hoaxes draw the noose of suspicion around the throats of all white people, and thereby are hate crimes against our entire race. Such crimes are used to justify past, present, and future harm to Westernkind. Heresy, deviation from anti-whiteism. Hush crime, all acts that victimize one or more Westmen, and by so doing contradict and/or disprove the anti-white narrative, and are therefore obfuscated, lied about, downplayed, ignored, or given comparatively little publicity, attention by anti-whites. Not all hush crimes are criminal, some are legal but socially condemned acts. Debunked hate hoaxes routinely become hush crimes. Hush crime is a powerful MC because the premise reveals the truth about anti-white domination of regime news and entertainment media. Interpretive mandate. The second of the two components of an MP. The interpretive mandate of an MP is a form of mental programming that dictates how we are supposed to feel about the first component of an MP, the anti-white precept. E.g., the interpretive mandate could mandate that the infected person feel negative emotions such as guilt in association with a precept that slanders Westernkind as wicked, or to feel more positive emotions such as righteousness or good humor in association with a precept that advocates inflicting harm on Westernkind. Isolationist, a craven saboteur promoting the bunker mindset, the destructive belief that the best course for white well-being is isolating one's family with several other families on small farmsteads in remote territories. Jealousy and envy, the fundamental motivations of the anti-white. Envy is specifically delineated from jealousy as a feeling of discontent, resentment, covetousness of Western successes, possessions, history, etc., whereas jealousy is anger, rage for a perceived rival who has or is likely to triumph in competition. Keep it Promethean, KIP, an AAP technique by which well-being advocates live their lives and frame their thoughts so as not to conflict with going free. It means that well-being advocates serve the welfare of the community for white well-being. In the phraseology of Prometheus Rising, Prometheans serve the well-being of the Prometheum, which is the Promethean community, ensuring the rapid growth, dissemination, and success of our community. White well-being advocates acknowledge that Westernkind is the most victimized people, persecuted, exploited, and psychologically abused for the totality of their lives. As such, to KIP means that well-being advocates consider transgressions against Westmen who are not anti-white to be shameful and disgraceful beyond compare. Meme curative MC, a thought or idea that helps to remedy MPs. Includes useful concepts, such as numerical courage, forced multiracial harmonizing, and statements, such as, there is no excellence where there is equality. Meme pathogen, MP, a thought or idea that is destructive for the individual or group who holds it. In the practice of going free, MPs mostly refer specifically to anti-white MPs, thoughts or ideas that produce physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual disease in Westernkind. They are lesions on our bodies, minds, and spirits. For example, any belief that white guilt or imposes one-sided moral, intellectual, or sentimental obligations on us that weaken our people in any way is an MP. Meme pathogen montage MPM MPs used in combination to support and seemingly validate each other. Mercenary, a type of saboteur with three distinct variants: professional agents, opportunists, and repentant villains. Moralize, intellectualize, sentimentalize MIS the pretexts and the creation of such pretexts employed by anti-whites to legitimize and justify the harm they inflict on Westmen and Western civilization. To mis pretext is to create, cite, repeat, etc. anti-white pretexts. Multiracial harmonizing, see the preferred wording, forced multiracial harmonizing, numerical courage, the state in which a people, within the body of another people or peoples, confidently projects their biospirit onto their environment without concern for the other people or peoples. The point at which non-whites within Western countries manifest and project their biospiritual expressions which are at variance with white expression onto Western civilization. This process initiates a cultural arms race which always ends in oppressive governmental tyranny and violent balkanization. Numerical diffidence, the state in which a people, within the body of another people or peoples, is reluctant to project their biospirit onto their environment for fear of upsetting, angering the other people or peoples. Prior to achieving numerical courage, non-whites in Western countries are in a state of numerical diffidence. While in this state, non-whites superficially conform to the biospiritual expression of Westernkind. Opportunist, a variant of the mercenary saboteur. Someone who joins or befriends white sympathetic communities with the intent of severing ties and telling their story, for attention and financial reward from an anti-white world eager to bolster the anti-white narrative. Pervasive anti-whiteism, the social, moral, ethical, and legal imperatives with which anti-whites have structured society so as to advance, enrich, and empower non-whites at the expense of, detriment to, and ruination of whites. Potential to power PTP, the aggregate of one's biospiritual potentialities to manifest, attain, and satisfy one's desires. PTP is limited by internal and external factors. Internally, one's unique biospiritual composition or architecture establishes one's potentialities. External forces, specifically MPs, undermine the attainment of internal potentialities by inflicting white noir, reducing one's abilities to manifest, attain, and satisfy one's desires. PTP can be positively and negatively influenced throughout life. By going free and reducing white noir, one increases one's PTP. Pristine, places people, states of mind, things inside Western societies that are largely untainted by anti-whiteism and unaffected by white erasure, having remained in or possibly returned to the pristine state they historically were in. Professional agent, a variant of the mercenary saboteur. A member of organized anti-white operations designed to infiltrate and harm white sympathetic communities. Promethean, a person who is going free. Also an adjective meaning to be befitting of someone going free. In reference to the dignity and honorable behavior of the Prometheans in Prometheus Rising. Prometheus Rising, a book by Jason Cohn presenting an inspirational and edifying myth, crafted for the advancement of Westernkind. Quicksanding, the behavior of dismissing ideas that either do or might serve white well-being without due consideration. From the allegory that a person behaving in this way is like quicksand, sinking, all ideas put to them. Regime, the governments, national and international banks, news and entertainment media, academia and all institutions influenced by these entities. Repentant villain, a role inside the anti-white narrative, played by former antagonists. The repentant villain expresses or feels remorse for playing the villain, and, never having truly rejected the anti-white narrative, repents, by assuming this complementary destructive role. The repentant villain may silently renounce and abandon white sympathetic concerns, or become actively anti-white, possibly becoming a mercenary in the process. Reputational investment. Putting one's reputation on the line by repeating the thoughts of content producers to one's friends and family. Roadblocking, any speech or activity, such as support shaming and virtue trapping, which undermines, in any way, a well-being advocate's work for white well-being. Saboteur, a person who intentionally or unintentionally inflicts negative influence on white sympathetic communities from within. Types of saboteur described include mercenaries, cravens, isolationists, abstractionists, sectarianists, and antagonists. Sectarianist, a saboteur who divides and weakens the community, serve white well-being or serve well-being, to improve the lives and structural supports of Westernkind and its expressions. Shame extorting, instilling shame to extort money for legal and other expenses from white sympathetic people after engaging in high-risk, low-reward behavior that harmed or could have harmed white well-being, even when the behavior is claimed to have been in service to the white race. Social lynching, economic, social, and psychological attacks zealously inflicted by anti-whites on those who intentionally or unintentionally express opinions, or engage in acts at variance with anti-whiteism. Social lynching often results in alienation from family and friends, as well as loss of employment. And therefore all of the concomitant losses, i.e., standard of living, health care, insurance, home, automobile, etc. espousing, entering the white positive sphere with the intent of finding a quality mate with which to abandon the white positive sphere. Support shaming, criticizing an advocate for white well-being, with the intent to undermine his or her efforts for white well-being, for accepting and/or asking for various forms of support, volunteer, financial, etc. Note: withholding or questioning support to newcomers to the white positive sphere is not support shaming. Such individuals have to prove themselves worthy of support with self-sacrifice and a history of successful advocacy for white well-being. Tactical frames of thought TFTs, another term for meme curatives, MCs, thought chains, a construct that engenders derivative constructs, thoughts premises that naturally lead to other thoughts conclusions. For example, MCs triggering related MCs, or MPs triggering related MPs. Vagues, people who have not come into contact with any form of anti-whiteism, are those who are not firmly anti-white but who speak, write and act villainy signal in ways that conform to the anti-white narrative. Signaling, signaling compliance with anti-whiteism. A behavior sometimes inappropriately described as signaling. White erase. To inflict white erasure. Weapon. A white person.
Of go. Your growth since beginning to go free. Some Westmen report a slowly expanding improvement in their clarity of thought and perception when they begin going free. Others recount explosive epiphanies, making them feel as though they have never truly seen the world. Some feel an overwhelming desire to plow deeper. Others may just feel overwhelmed. Whatever your experience, it is perfectly valid and part of the healing process. Name 3 changes you have noticed in yourself since you began going free. Level 3. Treatment. Welcome to the 3rd level of going free. Congratulations, you have come a long way. By this point, you may be troubled by how many of those around you remain trapped in ignorance, delusion, and even hostility toward Westmen going free. It can be difficult to continue with the process when you think about the vast number who remain infected. It can feel like a lonely journey, but you are not alone. More people than you realize are going free. There is a great white awakening happening now. As more and more of our people are going free, there is an exponential momentum. The Great White Awakening has produced milestones in the freeing of our people that signify an increasing impossibility of arresting the momentum of our cause. You are part of that heroic journey for our people. Your new awareness peels back the malicious facade that has kept you entangled in anti-white delusions. You have established the basis for self-actualization. You should now be able to detect pervasive anti-whiteism and the injustices that grow therefrom, harming whites for the benefit of anti-whites. Again, I challenge you to rededicate and redouble your efforts to go free. Are you ready to answer the difficult questions? Are you ready to take a hard look in the mirror? Are you ready to be a better you? Are you ready to align with the archetype of Western man? There's still a long way to go, but each step of going free brings you closer to achieving your PTP. Your work is creating the foundations for perfect health and accessing your true physical, mental, and spiritual potential as a Westman. Once again, look to the regime, your friends or family, permission, validation, or approval to go free. They are infected with the MPs from which you are going free. Their objection to going free is proof that you have made the best decision of your life. Let's continue. Self-generated opposition, healing, and renewal. In L3, you will be introduced to the methods for treating MP infections and for immunizing yourself against further infections. You will develop the important skill sets that derive from the dialectics and lexicon of going free. You will learn how to address MPs as you encounter or sense them within yourself, treating them and weakening them as you grow stronger. You will learn how to address and immunize yourself against new MPs as they present themselves in your environment. You will be empowered by productive thought chains, developing behaviors that will erode the foundations by which MPs easily infect and sway you. Finally, by developing these skill sets, your elevation will allow you to receive further instruction for going free, enabling you to climb higher toward your innate mental, physical, and spiritual potential. Identify, treat, go free. Your subconscious mind. Recall our discussion of the role of the subconscious mind and the power of the subconscious mind to largely govern our lives. It makes thousands of learned decisions, judgments, instantly and without recourse to our conscious minds. For example, it enabled our remote ancestors to pick and eat berries, while the conscious mind remained alert to threats and opportunities. Today, among many other activities, it enables us to drive our cars while we use our conscious minds for other matters, such as thinking about what we have to do later in the day. Obviously, the power of the subconscious to inform and guide us is of great benefit to us. However, it can also be an Achilles heel. The subconscious mind is like a block of clay that can be molded without our intent or recognition, and irrespective of reason, logic, and evidence. It indiscriminately absorbs information, regardless of truth or falsehood. People whose minds are untrained are easily convinced of falsehoods. If such falsehoods are not dispelled, they seat themselves firmly in our subconscious minds. The longer they go unchallenged, the deeper they are buried. Importantly, this increasing depth conceals and strengthens their influence over our identities. Such deep infections are so thoroughly ingrained in the origin of our personalities and characters that it is difficult to differentiate them from ourselves. Consider emotionally charged beliefs, such as religion or politics. It can be difficult to differentiate such beliefs from ourselves. If we try to imagine ourselves without such beliefs, the person we imagine may no longer seem like us. In other words, such beliefs come to form part of our identity. Tragically, this same process has occurred with MPs in Western kind. The MPs which we have been infected with were delivered as factual, authoritative, and sacred by the many arms of the regime, the governments, academia, and news and entertainment media. Furthermore, social authorities have reinforced these ideas throughout our lives by rewarding those who conform and punishing those who dissent. Our subconscious minds, as a result of this formative period molding and lifelong reinforcement, are deeply infected with a broad range of MPs. Conscious and unconscious thought are similar to surface and deep-sea currents. Surface currents, like conscious thought, are superficial relative to deep-sea currents, subconscious thoughts. Deep-sea currents drive the ocean around our planet, whereas surface currents can be altered by the wind. The deep-sea currents are the pulse and governing power in the ocean. Interestingly, we use the saying, "wherever the wind blows," to underscore the ease with which conscious opinion changes. But these surface, superficial opinions and currents that are easily changed are much less important to you, your identity, and your process of going free. Rather, it is the deep-sea currents, the MPs infecting your subconscious, which you need to address to truly go free. Triggers in your subconscious. Cues from your environment and your conscious thoughts trigger MPs in your subconscious mind. A cue is any element in your environment or conscious thoughts that activates an MP you are infected with. For example, you're standing at a bus stop with a group of strangers. A white man gives each of you a leaflet that warns about non-white violence and the dangers of a growing anti-white, non-white population. While riding on the bus, you wonder if your family will be safe in a community composed increasingly of other peoples. The leaflet is an external cue. The thought you had while on the bus was an internal cue. Both activated MPs with which you are infected. Once an MP has been triggered, the interpretive mandates connected to each anti-white precept are evoked by your subconscious. For example, you likely feel shame or that you are doing something wrong for holding or even listening to or reading opinions that conflict with anti-whiteism. You feel like an outcast, ugly, uneducated, frightened, etc. Imagine that you stand on a small stage, surrounded by a random crowd of strangers. A man on a megaphone tells the group that you don't think the races are identical, that you reject diversity, that you prefer associating with your own people. All eyes are on you. How do you feel? By contrast, when you endorse anti-whiteism, you feel righteous. You feel welcomed, supported, intelligent, virtuous. Same stage, same crowd, same man on a megaphone telling the crowd that you think everyone is identical, that you support diversifying your workplace or school, that you enjoy your contact with exotic cultures. These thoughts and feelings are automatic and instantaneous. By the time you begin consciously examining the cues that triggered these thoughts and feelings, you have already interpreted, judged, and measured the cues by anti-white standards of right and wrong. You have already considered the cues at the speed of subconscious thought, which is to conscious thought as the speed of a jet fighter to a biplane. Even if you consciously know that the anti-white interpretations, judgments, and measurements are wrong, your conscious mind is forced to wrestle with your subconscious for the prize of your identity. What's worse, not only have your conscious thoughts arrived late to the struggle, but you are further disadvantaged because your conscious mind requires effort to wage the fight. Your subconscious mind does not. Confront, challenge, dispel. To combat white noir and mitigate the control MPs exercise over thoughts and behavior, you must use your conscious mind to override your subconscious mind. You must confront, challenge, and dispel, CCD, your MPs the instant they are triggered. You do this by consciously counter-asserting with MCs. We CCD because MPs cannot be erased from our subconscious minds. There is no mechanism whereby we can simply delete these ingrained infections. However, by consistently CCDing, you build counter-triggers. These counter-triggers eventually become part of your subconscious mind. When an MP is triggered by a cue in your environment or your conscious thoughts, your counter-trigger is triggered by the MP, thereby decreasing and even negating the MP's influence. Q equals triggered MP equals triggered counter-trigger equals MP negated. Establishing subconscious counter-triggers is fundamental to the process of going free. To CCD, you must create a countervailing statement, a statement that offsets the MP with equal or greater force, as opposed to a disapproving statement. For example, if confronted with the MP that diversity is strength, it it would be incorrect to say diversity isn't strength, or it's not true that diversity is strength. Rather, when confronted with the MP that diversity is strength, CCD with one or more of the following. Diversity is weakness. Diversity is conflict. Diversity is discomfort. Diversity is white erasure. Diversity is dyssynergistic. Diversity is death. Let us consider another MP and how to CCD when it is triggered. A fundamental MP that many other MPs are built upon is Western kind is uniquely responsible for slavery. When you encounter this MP in your environment, a plot point in a novel, newspaper story, television show, movie trailer, etc., or in your thoughts, reflecting on what you had learned about slavery at school, you must CCD. Remind yourself that Western kind did not invent slavery. Slavery has been practiced around the world since prehistoric times. Every race has enslaved every other race. Recall that the non-white peoples of the world have Western kind to thank for the time, treasure, and lives we sacrificed to put an end to slavery during the 19th century to achieve our ideal of a world without slavery. Remember to tell yourself that anti-whites want to infect and white guilt us with these MPs to harm our people and enrich themselves at our expense. Here is another example of an MP infection. The sight of a shabby non-white neighborhood may trigger the thought that its inhabitants live in squalor and violence because our people have disadvantaged them. Again, you must counter-assert. Remind yourself that Western kind is not responsible for the neighborhood's condition. Western kind did not cause its inhabitants to be less intelligent or do less planning for the future. Non-whites have agency and must live with the consequences of their decisions and behavior, just like Westman. Remind yourself that anti-whites want to infect us with white guilt in order to turn us against our own people. Remind yourself, in every case, that the anti-white ideas, concepts, feelings, etc. that well up within you are the smoking gun evidence of the crimes anti-whites have committed against you, everyone you love, and our people. Use the righteous anger you generate from these moments to vigorously combat that part of yourself that remains infected, that continues to do the bidding of your victimizers long after they infected you. Make a commitment. Never sacrifice our people so that you can socially signal that you are a good person by anti-white standards. Make a commitment to yourself to remember that all of these good feelings are an illusion. These good feelings are actually further injuring you and our people, and specifically our children. Your examples of CCDing MP infections. In your own words, formulate a CCD statement you could make in response to the MP that Westmen create social conditions which compel non-whites to deal drugs. Remember to create a countervailing statement, a statement that offsets the MP with equal or greater force, as opposed to a disapproving statement. Focus at least one of your answers on the fact that anti-whites want to infect and white guilt us with MPs to suppress your well-being and our efforts to secure the well-being of our people and children. Meme curatives, MCs. Meme curatives, MCs. Meme curative MCs are the remedies for MPs. MCs are tools that work like MPs, but rather than harm you, they empower you. I've coined many powerful MCs, and below I share some of these and others. See appendices for an expanded list of MPs and MCs. It is not the similarities that make us the same. It is differences that make us different. This is an extremely powerful MC. I have successfully used it hundreds, if not thousands of times, to defeat MPs in myself and others. This MC is so powerful because it defeats the MP, all races of man are the same, on which so much of anti-whiteism is built. Racial differences are not skin deep. They extend to the essence of our being. Anti-whites often trivialize the profound racial differences by saying the difference among the races is no more than pigment or skin tone. Forced multiracial harmonizing. We are forced to harmonize the racial diversity, which massively diverts our resources, time, talent, and money. And that massive consumption of our resources radically lowers our quality of life in all areas of our lives. Mutual discomfort as a consequence of biospiritual incompatibility is the basis of governmental tyranny and violent balkanization. Governments employ escalating intrusions on privacy and punishments to keep the mutually antagonistic peoples at peace. Anti-white slurs. The language of white oppression, white erasure. Words like racist, bigot, anti-Semite, hater, xenophobe, homophobe, sexist, fascist, etc. While certain anti-white slurs may have reasonable definitions in some contexts, they are all inextricably bound to MPs in the average person's mind. As a practitioner of going free, you should strive to avoid using anti-white slurs in any context, as their usage reinforces and legitimizes anti-whiteism. They inflict harm on Western kind by demonizing us and preventing us from defending ourselves. Anti-white slurs offend you. There is no excellence where there is equality. Eventually, there isn't even competence. There is no competence or excellence because everyone is reduced to the least capable or able to achieve equality, which is largely defined as outcome of result rather than opportunity. Increasingly, however, anti-whites use equity in the place of equality, which is largely defined as equality by way of superior outcome for non-whites. Numerical diffidence. The state in which a people within the body of another people or peoples is reluctant to project their biospirit onto their environment for fear of upsetting, angering the other people or peoples. Prior to achieving numerical courage, non-whites in Western countries are in a state of numerical diffidence. While in this state, non-whites superficially conform to the biospiritual expression of Western kind. Numerical courage. The state in which a people, within the body of another people or peoples, confidently projects their biospirit onto their environment without concern for the other people or peoples. The point at which non-whites within Western countries manifest and project their biospiritual expressions, which are at variance with white expression, onto Western civilization. This process initiates a cultural arms race, which always ends in oppressive governmental tyranny and violent balkanization. Virtue trapping. Typically a tactic employed by anti-whites. Virtue trapping is when an advocate for white well-being is criticized for not perfectly exemplifying a virtue that he or we maintain as necessary for healthy life and community. Confronted by this tactic, defeat it by naming the tactic and identifying what he is doing. Multiracialism. Do not use the word multiculturalism and correct the use in others going free. Diversity is dyssynergistic. Multiracialism is dyssynergistic. We are less than the sum of our parts. If you abide by anti-whiteism, you reinforce anti-whiteism. Thoughts and behaviors that conform to anti-whiteism strengthen anti-whiteism. Maturing sociopolitically. By going free, you are maturing sociopolitically. All those who move toward white well-being from one sociopolitical concept to the next are maturing sociopolitically. By helping others to go free, we are helping them to mature sociopolitically. Victimizer. The anti-whites are our victimizers. Try not to use the word enemy for anti-whites because enemy implies some measure of equal ability and desire to inflict harm, which we do not possess. I speak at greater length on this in the chapter, Know Your Enemy, Not Enemies, below. We are the elect of our people. All Westmen who care about our people and our creations are the best of their families, communities, states, and countries. All of these people who also go free are the best of the best, the elect of Western kind. We are white positive. We are well-being advocates. Those who disagree with white well-being are anti-white. As anti-whiteism harms everyone and everything, anti-whites are the enemy of humanity and the planet. We, as practitioners of going free, champion humanity and nature. Pristine. Places, people, states of mind, things inside Western societies that are largely untainted by anti-whiteism and unaffected by white erasure, having remained in or possibly returned to the pristine state they historically were in. Curative contagion. The AAP. Going free. Anger, defense, etc. is a virtue when it protects the innocent. Often, anti-whites undermine well-being advocates by using reverse psychology. They accuse you of being angry, hateful, or fearful, and they explicitly or implicitly offer to withdraw the accusation if you embrace anti-whiteism. Rather than fall for their trap, respond by stating that anger is a virtue when it protects the innocent. When they say that you are afraid or hateful of a degenerate lifestyle, or that you are afraid or hateful of non-white immigrants, you say that you are a defender of white well-being, and that defense is a virtue when it protects the innocent. Equivalence fallacy. This is when anti-whites draw tenuous or false equivalencies. For example, citing the good behavior of non-white individuals to draw a false equivalence between the biospiritual harmony, high trust, high social engagement, etc., of homogeneous Western civilization and the biospiritual incompatibility of multiracial societies that white erase Western kind. You feel the biospiritual disharmony, alienated in your own community, discomfort, and increasing physical threat of being the last white person in your community. But at least your neighbor mows his yard. Name and identify what the anti-white is doing to defeat this tactic. Increasing my likelihood of dying from X is not legitimized by saying that I am already likely to die from Y. For example, anti-whites will say that we already might get raped by a white rapist, so why object to bringing non-white rapists into the country? Or anti-whites will say that we already might get murdered by a white murderer, so why object to increasing the likelihood of being murdered by a non-white terrorist? Diversity is white erasure. So-called diversity is an attack on Westman because it means fewer white people. Diversity hire, fire, or diversity selection, rejection. We focus on the consequences for our people rather than the special treatment for non-whites or other victim groups. For every diversity hire, there is a diversity fire. For every diversity selection, there is a diversity rejection. Jobs, promotions, raises, enrollment, and government contracting, etc. As there are a finite number of these things, and as whites are the only group that can be legally and socially discriminated against, earmarking by race and official victim group automatically victimizes a white person. Equality is the demand of the incompetent to handicap the competent. Further, it is the argument the privileged use to justify robbing those whom they misname privileged. Framing demands as equality is an attempt to stand on the moral high ground in order to conceal the self-serving nature of the demand. Heresy. When you are victimized by anti-whites or holding opinions heretical to anti-whiteism, when you are not anti-white or anti-white enough. Do not say that this or that person was fired or jailed for X. Insert the anti-white charge here, such as racism or hurtful speech. Anti-whites are not protecting non-whites. They are victimizing you for heresy to anti-whiteism, as you